Listen to me. I want you to hear me, my children, for I am of a different generation from the one that now mostly blesses this nation. But I sometimes feel amongst you like a dinosaur. I'm all big and powerful, yet not extinct. No one can any longer hear my roar. But I'm still the voice of what came before, and I cannot let you forget and not understand how we, as a race of people, got our footing in, then came marching through Jim Crow door. Can you smell a stench of death left in the nostrils of our guys who fought Iraqi freedom, Desert Storm of Vietnam? Do you know the horror of baby?
Welcome to JustMen, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining JustMen. On today's program, we have a very special guest. He's no stranger to the community of Nashville, but it's his first time being on our program. Please welcome Khaos. Khaos, welcome to JustMen.
Glad to be here, sir.
Oh man, it's a tremendous blessing. And let me say on the onset that you add value to our program. And we're so excited on what God is going to share through your heart and through your life story and your ministry. There's so much more that can be captured on this program here, but we want to start with where we are. And with that, just give us a quick bio on who is Khaos.
I was raised in the Nashville community. I went to school here. And I've been involved in several things, nonprofits throughout the community. I've dealt with street people. I've dealt with gangbangers, drug dealers, drug addicts, alcoholics. I've been trying to be a deterrent to teen pregnancy, high school dropouts, and things of that nature. And this is what inspires me.
Wow, it's amazing how you start off in defining your life on how you've helped others. And that's a beautiful way to define it. Tell me a little bit more about what inspired and what is your ministry? What is your ministry in terms of helping others?
Actually, I just have an affinity for the underdog because when I grew up, I kind of felt like I was one of those disenfranchised people that nobody cared about, just a throwaway person. And I've always wanted to get out there and do something. I always figured that something could be done to help those that were less fortunate. One of the mottos of the church that I go to is whosoever. So I felt like whosoever should come to me that I could do something about. I thought it was my duty. I thought it was God's put me here to try to do that.
You know, in your life, man, and as I told you off the set, you know, what captures my heart in drawing to you is I think about life story, man. Over the years, the things that you've done and the wisdom that you've gained and the walk with God that you've had. Share a little bit about some of those experiences in this walk with God and how it's put you on this playing field that you became an instrument of God.
Well, actually, I started out pretty much running from God. I wasn't so much spiritual as I'm trying to be now. I don't know, I just felt like that I was just one of those people that was on the outside. I felt like nobody loved me, nobody cared, and I was out there doing all kinds of things to try to make myself be somebody. But actually, God has a way of humbling people. It happened for me in the real set during a car accident some years ago in which I broke my neck. I was paralyzed for a period of time. I was totally disabled. And through that time, my faith began to grow. The ministry of the people around me came to me and telling me about God, and I began to see that. I began to feel that. The fact is that I now today can walk, I can dress myself, I can feed myself, I live alone, and I can take care of myself. And I just see the glory of God.
What comes and resonate in your heart now when you talk about poetry and what poetry in particular in mind?
Actually, I think poetry is a gift from God to me. It was my way of venting, it was my way of being heard, because like I said, I didn't feel I had a voice. And some of the things that I thought about privately, I began to write about. When I was in Vietnam, I came home and I was just kind of confused about that whole experience. Here I was way over there fighting for a country that didn't even give me the honor of being called a man. You know, they looked at me less than a human being. And civil rights was a big thing during that time, and here I was away fighting for somebody else's civil rights. And that became kind of like a salvation tool for me, in that I could express myself, and then once I got it out on paper, I found some relief The surprise came to me is that years later when I started to share some of the stuff that I wrote down, how much other people related to what I was saying. And so it became a tool for me to kind of reach out to some of the people who thought maybe that they were downtrodden and just left out there to rot. You know, when they started reading some of my stuff, they said, well, brother, I didn't know nobody else felt like that, which encouraged me to write even more. So I went from writing those disheartening stories, those depressing stories, to, I mean, today I can even write about love, you know.
Wow. 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 That's beautiful. Why don't you share with us? We'll talk about both sides of the stories, the story of the pain and the story of the grief that you penned and put on paper. Share one of those poetries with us now.
I'd like to do this one called The Old Folk. Listen to me. Listen to me. I want you to hear me, my children, for I am of a different generation from the one that now mostly blesses this nation. But I sometimes feel amongst you like a dinosaur. I mean, I'm all big and powerful, yet not extinct. No one can any longer hear my roar. But I'm still the voice of what came before, and I cannot let you forget and not understand how we, as a race of people, got our footing in, then came marching through Jim Crow door. I mean, can you smell a stench of death left in the nostrils of our guys who fought Iraqi freedom, Desert Storm, or Vietnam? Do you know the horror of babies being bombed in church in Birmingham? Drink from the bitter cup of Georgia justice. Tell me, is that peach really sweet? Have you ever felt the dog bites or billy clubs or fire hose pressure knock you off your feet in an Alabama street? Have you forgotten black bodies swinging in the Mississippi sun? And I know not many here can remember signs saying, white only, or run, black man, run. But this is how far in my lifetime I've come. Now today I see my brothers with their hats on backwards and upside down and pants hanging off the, don't be a hater, they tell me. Okay, I'll let that pass. But what about selling poison and slow death to one another on city streets? What about disrespecting our elders and teaching our women to be freaks and our children cyber geeks? 'Tis a new day, they tell me. We no longer do things in your old-fashioned Uncle Tom way. Again, I say, have we, my people, lost our man? The reply I get in mass is, sit down, old fool. You just stuck on stupid and lost in time. The old folk.
That's powerful. That is powerful. I mean, that's enough for us to pause in silence. Your words resonates, and it's something that is challenging a lot of our young men and women today. Is a loss of sense of identity, who they are. Your ministry, and you call it the ministry that Jesus so eloquently preached and teached about helping your fellow man, and particularly those that have been downtrodden, yes, and those that have been disengaged and what they say disenfranchised, yes, with society. And part of your effectiveness has been your ability to be genuine and real. Talk to me about some of the life stories that you've seen change as a result of just you being a vessel.
Well, when I first started out dealing with people in the street, you know, I used to hear people talk about people, oh, she's just a crackhead, oh, he's just a junkie, oh, he's old drunk and all that. And some of these people, when I met them and sit down and talk to them, they had fantastic life stories, and for one reason or another, they dropped off the map. And when I sit down and talk to them and started to try to encourage them that all was not lost, over the years, I've seen people come back because someone showed them some attention, someone cared. Almost daily, I have people call me or send me a message on Facebook, Khaos, we're glad you never gave up on us. I'm glad God never gave up on me, because I was one of those people. You know, I've been through, I run the gullet. You know, I've been involved in the criminal justice system. I've been a drunk. I've been out there involved in the drug scene in Nashville. So therefore, when I go talk to some of these people, especially some of these young guys who are standing on the corner dealing, or they talking about gang banging and drive-by shooting and home invasion, they can listen to me because they know me. They know that I've been there. They see the change that God has done to me. And really and truly, that some of them want this. Some of them want to know, how did you go about getting this? Where does this peace of mind come from? Mm-hmm. And when I start telling them about Jesus, it's just like a glow. It's just like it just comes from within. And they see it, and you know, it's effective.
Wow, man, that's beautiful. You know, as you were speaking, and I really feel the presence of God on your life. And I'm reminded in John chapter 5, there was the pool of Bethesda, and there were many there that had so many infirmities, enough infirmities that there were 5 different pools there that was channeled there through the pool of Bethesda. And there were one man that was there that had an infirmity for 38 years, man, struggling, man, trying to get this thing together. And Jesus comes by him and asks him, will thou be whole? Will you be made whole? And he says, I don't have a man that when the water is shaken up by the angel, that when I try to get there, someone else jumped before me and they are healed and I miss my healing. And so I'm still with these infirmities. And then Jesus just says, rise, pick up your bed and walk. And that resonated in my heart about how Christ renews first the human spirit.
Right.
And then renews the human mind. And then the body has to line up with the spirit and the mind. And that's what I seen you doing in people's lives is going to them and saying, rise and pick up your bed and walk. And the infirmities begin to fall off. And I say all that to say that when you begin to reflect back on the lives that you touched, and see the turmoil that's still going on in people's lives, what else is it going to take to get people, as your poetry just said, to get it together and to rise above their circumstances?
You should mention that story about John, because one of my favorite stories out of the Bible is about the woman who just reached out in the crowd and said, if I could just touch the hem of his gown.
Yeah.
And when Christ says, who done that? Who touched me? And the woman, feeling like she'd done something wrong, fessed up. And Christ said, thy faith has healed thee. So my message to people around him is that your faith can heal you. You know, if you believe, as you believe, so shall you receive. Until I started looking to God to get healed, to have some of the pain removed, to have some of the things go right that I thought was going wrong, nothing that I did was going right. Once I accepted God, once I accepted the power of God's love for me, I started telling other people when I see them, regardless of what they're doing, what their afflictions are, what their downfall is, I see the God in you. And I do. I mean, I really do. When people talk about somebody, oh man, look at that guy over there ragged. Look at that guy over there with no teeth. Look at that guy that's ugly. I see the God in that person. And I have to tell them about it. I have to tell them that you are a child of God, no matter what nobody tells you. And let that be their salvation. Let that faith grow within them.
Wow, that's beautiful. You know, that is so powerful. Love, God's love, and reminding people who they are in God, like the prodigal son. The prodigal son had fallen to the infirmities and the ways of the world, and he had lost everything that he had. And yet the Bible says that he came to himself. And he says that my Father has enough, man. You know, here I am suffering in hunger, and my Father, he recognized that his Father had enough. And I think that's the part of so many are lost their identity in who they are and who their Father is. Yeah. And that's what you talk about, the love. He didn't even think that the Father, unconditional love, would be enough to bring him back. You know, would he accept me? You know, I mean, you know, I don't deserve to be a son, as you say, of God. I don't deserve to be in the royalty place that he's placed me in. But God's love is not based on our conditions. He's not even based on our choices. It's based on who he is.
Right.
And so I want you to expound on is how do you love the downtrodden, the ones who are constantly fighting you when you're trying to feed them this message of love and they trying to throw it back in your face? How do you stand your ground over these many years?
Well, I think it just comes from within. As God love grows in you, you also learn patience. You also learn to accept rejection. And you know that a lot of times, what Christ himself on the cross said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He also said, whosoever shall come to me, let them. When they tried to run the children away from him, Christ said, no, suffer the little children unto me. See, because he knew that the little children were innocent. Although they may have been led astray, although they may have had false conceptions about what was, he knew that they could be nurtured. And I know when I see people, having been there myself, what they're really looking for. You know, see, so many of us lean to our own understanding. We want to be independent, especially those of us who've been disenfranchised. We think we have a better way. All right, nobody cares, so I'll just go do this. I'll be as bad as I can be. I'll make a lot of money. That'll make people respect and love me. I'll dress fine. And then they try to have that power to wail over the people, to try to coerce people into accepting them. But when they look at it all, when they go through it all, they still got to come back to themselves. So it's just a matter of making people aware of what's really there. You know, all that glitters is not gold. I thought that if I went out there and made a lot of money, I didn't have any regards for how I made it. I had to step on who I hurt. My mother sitting over there crying because I was out all night, riding around in cars full of liquor and all that kind of stuff. But when I became a parent, when I started going out trying to minister to other people, I saw my mother's pain. I saw my father striving to support us, and we out there doing everything we could to bring his name down. It's kind of like what we do to Jesus, kind of like what we do to God.
Wow.
But my father never turned his back on me. My mother never quit loving me. So here we are. We've come around circle.
Boy, you are, and I see why those have said, man, you need to be on Just Men. I mean, Just Men has been that conduit, that outlet to let men come and depart wisdom, which you have today, and depart your love and your spirit and your heart. And I see why. Why do you think that others says, man, you know, you need to be on Just Men to share your message? Why do you think they said you need to be on our program?
Every Sunday morning on when I'm going out to church, T.D. Jakes is on, and he says, tell them if you knew my whole story, it would blow your mind. So I think those that have known me for some time and have seen the transformation and understand that God is working in my life, understand that I'm a product in motion. I'm not finished. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I was.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is the true testament of a walk with God, man. That is a true testament. And I think for so many times people think that this walk with God is an ivory tower, that you got to look apart in your external, you know, the nice cars, the nice clothes. But the walk with God is a change of heart. Yeah. God is trying to condition our heart that we'll be a man after his own heart, a man that is of character outside of the public, in our secret places, walking upright before God, and not just so publicly having this, you know, people say, oh, I know you're a Christian. How do you know that? How do I show you that I have, or I'm reflecting the image of God? And that's what it's really about, as being a Christian. How do I do that?
But you know, it's strange, because just the other night, Wednesday night, I was on my way to church to Bible study. Old neighborhood, and I was sitting in the car with a guy, and he was saying, well, man, I sure would like to have a drink right now. And he said, well, you know, I ain't got love. I said, well, I got headphones. He said, I thought you was going to church. I said, I am. He said, well, man, I just don't see how you can be around people drinking and everything. And I don't play with God like that. I said, well, let me ask you this. When you was in the dope house Saturday night and got up and went to church Sunday morning, did you think God didn't know you got high last night? I said, so I ain't perfect. I ain't that good a Christian yet, but I'm trying to be. I said, so what difference do it make if I sneaked around the back and turned up a bottle of whiskey and didn't go to church, or if I turned up the bottle of whiskey and went on in church and said to myself in my prayer, God, I know I shouldn't have done that, but you know I'm weak. Help me with this, help me. And that's where my strength comes from. I know when I'm doing right or wrong, but sometimes I'm just so in the habit, I'm just so weak that I know I need help. That's why I go to church. I had a teacher tell me once, when I was young going to school, I was kind of disruptive. I wanted to be the class clown. Well, the reason was that the work was too slow for me, and I got bored, so I started clowning. She said, I'm going to tell you this. If you come and sit in my class every day, you're going to learn something. So I'm the same way about going to church. I figure if I go to church as much as I can, and every chance I get, I'm bound to learn something, you know.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You said the essence, and that's what I tell men. And then I said, well, man, can I go in the condition I'm in? And I'm like, come the way you are, man. Go to God, whether it's in the body, in the church, or whether it's whatever means that you're trying to pursue and find God. Use that mean, but don't allow nothing to separate you from God, and allow Him and His Holy Spirit and the power of His Spirit to bring the change, because you can't change yourself anyway. You cannot. It's only the power of God to bring about that change.
That's right.
You keep going, you keep seeking, you keep thirsting, you keep hungering, but let the Spirit of God bring you into the full image. And that's the part that sometimes religion sometimes has us overcast as saying, no, only the good, the perfect that are in here. And it's not for those who are not. And really, it's totally on the opposite. It's totally contrary to that.
But I think that's for a lot of people. They think that, I hear people say, well, one of these days when I get ready, when I get it right, I'm going, well, you know, that day might never come. You know, would you rather die trying to get it right, or die wishing that you had got it, had tried? You know, I didn't do this. If I had my way, I'd still be out there riding Harley Davidsons or whatever kind of piece of motorcycle I could get on with a bottle of Jack Daniels somewhere. You know, if it was left up to me.
Yeah.
But God, and He knew I was hurting, and He knew that I needed to do something. Sometimes when people ask me about my accident and breaking my neck and stuff, I say, you know, I think that's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. So how can you say that? Man, look at you. You all afflicted. You can't work. And I said, yeah, but don't you understand that if this had never happened, I never would have took the time to listening to God call me.
Wow. See, and that's the essence that I found my life. I had the physical life, but I didn't have the spiritual life. I had died spiritually into the things of God. I lived, and everybody thought I'm doing well, very ambitious, and had all these other accolades and whatever. But deep down in my spirit, man, there was no life. And God is trying to give us the eternal life. You know, not this finite life, but I'm talking about an infinite life that flows with His breath, man, and it moves. And that's why I do what I do. You know, I mean, there's so many other things you and I could be doing, but the same love constrains us to help people. Even when we need help, we still help people, because the same Spirit that was in Christ is dwelling in us, and it dwells in others. It's just that it needs to be awakened. It's so dormant and it's so deep that it needs someone like you to come and speak a word or speak poetry in their life to awaken the spirit man inside of them, to say, hey, you are more than what you're going through. You're not your history.
Yes,
you're not your past. You're not your experience. You're greater than all of that. And when you awaken to that, when you arise, like the man at Bethesda at that pool, he rised and picked up his bed and walked. Like the prodigal son who rose and went to his father's house, and his father embraced him and gave him a fatted calf and put a ring on his finger and said, my son who was lost, now he's found. He was dead and now he lives. It's that kind of message, man, that we got to continue to give each other, man, in terms of empowerment and coming into the oneness of God. And I tell you, man, you have, there's so much that I know in my heart, man, that you can expound on more and more. But what message now in our closing moments that just seems to resonate that you have for the people as it relates to?
You know, I was going to talk about being happy, but I'll talk about this. This is called When I Say I Love You. When I say I love you, it's not just something I'm saying. And I'm not saying it to women because they're female and I'm a man. I'm not saying it to try to play games with their head. I'm not even saying I love you to try to take some woman to wed. When I say I love you from my heart and soul because I believe we're all worthy of love and need to be told. But you see, some people play with each other like it's some kind of prize pit. They'll tell you anything just to see what they can get. But when I say I love you, my intentions end up being suspect. Have we, my people, done each other so wrong that we can't understand a true emotion when it's shown? Well, I'll just keep saying I love you. That's all I can do, I guess. I'll just keep saying I love you, and I'll let God do the rest.
Wow. Wow. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. You know, you have awakened us. You have awakened us. And those who watch our program, I know that they're inspired by your words. And we're definitely going to have you back on to share more of your life story and your impact in those lives and bringing them into recognition that they are the child of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. They are his child, and we just got to remind them. And once they come into that awakening, then everything else will line up with the image of who they really are. Last word of encouragement. I'm going to give it back to you, man. There's nothing I can say. I got to give it back to you.
Well,
Last words of
I'll
encouragement.
start with happiness then. Happiness is like an improvised jazz song. It can come on slow and bluesy or fast and up-tempo. Not really hip-hopping, rather more like bebopping as it carries you along. You see, we as intellectuals, we like to analyze, revise, and summarize, examine up close and remove the surprise. But in spite of ourselves, happiness can from the bluest of funk still arise. You see, happiness inhabits all beings from a senior to a child. Happiness warms like a summer sun. Happiness can make life so much fun. And happiness is always accompanied by a smile. It makes no difference if it's love, if it's yours or mine. Happiness makes the eyes and the soul shine. So, just be happy.
Wow. Stay focused. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peace.